All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the organizational and regular board meeting of the Willoughby-Eastlake City Schools Board of Education here at 35353 Cordes Boulevard, Eastlake, Ohio. Mr. Charnello, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Murrar?
Here.
Mr. Roskis?
Here.
Mrs. Zern?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1E on our agenda is the election and oath of office of the Board of Education President to a one-year term. I am looking for a nomination. Yes, Mr. Murrar.
I'd like to nominate Tom Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Murrar. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President, I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Murrar?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Dr. Beal is the president for the 2021 calendar year.
Do we have the oath of office?
We do. You can hold it. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as members of the Board of Education of the Willoughby-Eastlake School District, Lake County, Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified?
I do.
All right.
Thank you for your support. The next item is the election and oath of office of the Board of Education Vice President to a one-year term. Do I hear a nomination?
President,
Yes, Mr. Graham.
I'd like to nominate Brian Jones.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Mr. President, I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Murnar?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Jones is the Vice President for the 2021 calendar year.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as members of the Board of Education of the Willoughby-Eastlake School District, Lake County, Ohio, to the best of your ability in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified?
I do.
Great. Congratulations.
Great. The next item on the agenda is the establishment of the 2021 Board of Education meeting dates. Those dates are in the attachments in the minutes tonight and also will be posted on the Willoughby-Eastlake City Schools district website. Item 1H, Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules of Order will be used in the absence of board policies. 1I, Establishment of Service Fund for fiscal year 2021. According to Ohio Revised Code 3315.15, the Treasurer of the Board of Education has certified that the number of pupils enrolled in the Willoughby-Eastlake City School District is 7,401 as of December 1st, 2020. By law, a sum not to exceed $2 for each child so enrolled, or $20,000, whichever is greater, may be set aside from the general fund to be known as the service fund, to be used only in paying the expenses of the members of the Board of Education actually incurred in the performance of their duties, or of their official representatives when sent out of the school district for the purpose of promoting the welfare of the schools under their charge. So be it resolved that the recommendation of the superintendent that a service fund be established by the Board of Education in the amount of $20,000. Item 1J, recommendations by the Board of Education to authorize the treasurer. This is to authorize the treasurer to request advances on taxes collected in calendar year 21, to reinvest available funds for calendar year 21 in accordance with board policy and established administrative procedures. Summary of such investments will be reported monthly throughout the year, and to pay bills within adopted appropriations in calendar year 2021. Item 1K, legal counsel appointments. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the superintendent of schools and his designees be authorized to contact legal counsel as necessary for the successful performance of their duties. Legal counsel is designated to be Squires Patton Boggs, Hoover Casion LLC, Walter and Grant LLC, Walter Haverfield LLP, and the Riley Law Firm. Item 1L, Board of Education meeting minutes. Provided that the Board of Education members receive the minutes of the previous meeting at least 3 or more days in advance of a meeting, authorization is given for the board to waive reading of the minutes at that meeting. Item 1.8M, resolution requesting notification. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer to approve the resolution requesting that the Board of Education be notified by the tax commissioner of any application for exemption from taxation for any property located within the district. This resolution is pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5715.27. Item 1N, tax budget for fiscal year 2022. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and treasurer that the tax budget for fiscal year 2022 be adopted. Item 1O, resolution for group health, vision, and dental insurance for board members. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and treasurer that the board members may participate at their own expense in group health, vision, and dental insurance plans provided to employees of the district. Item 1P, pre-authorization of advance of funds. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and treasurer that the treasurer shall be authorized to make adjustments, transfers, and additional modifications to budget up to $2,500,000 revenue and appropriation accounts as necessary to update and close each month during the fiscal year to include fiscal end. Item 1Q, hiring authority. Be it resolved that the Willoughby-Eastlake Board of Education authorize the superintendent to employ personnel on a temporary basis between board meetings. And this item does require a separate vote. So I'm looking for a motion to pass item 1Q, hiring authority.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Zern.
I will make the motion to approve item 1Q, hiring authority.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President,
Mr.
I will
Ross.
second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Trinello?
Mrs. Zern,
Yes.
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mr. Murrar,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Beal.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 2 on the agenda, 2A, is the approval of the minutes of December 14th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes? Yes, Mr. Murhart.
Motion to approve the minutes from December 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Murhart. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones?
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mr. Trinello?
Mr. Murrar,
Yes.
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mrs. Zern,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Beal.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 3 is the treasurer's report. Mr. Trinello?
Letter 3A is the financial report for the month ending December 31st, 2020. We ended with a cash balance of $7 million, which is ahead of where we thought we'd be by roughly $2 million. However, we are spending about $6 million more than that's our deficit spending per month without tax advances, so we will make payroll in January without a tax advance. So I know that was our big concern. However, I will ask for a January tax advance just in case, but it's safe to say that we will make payroll in the month of January. Letter 3B is the Board of Education member compensation resolution. This is the same as last year. Be it resolved that the current members of the Willoughby-Eastlake Board of Education shall be compensated at $125 per meeting attended in calendar year 21 for a maximum of 36 meetings. Letter 3C, this is the Willoughby-Eastlake RSVP relinquishment. A quick blurb from Jason Boyd, the County Administrator for the Lake County Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners recently completed a year-long strategic plan that focused on priorities relating to the senior services levy. Volunteer services was one such priority. RSVP currently receives 30% of its funding from a federal grant. The remaining 70% is from the senior services levy. The Board of Lake County Commissioners, as the primary funder, has identified a more cost-effective means to provide volunteer services while also increasing the impact of volunteer services to the senior community, moving RSVP under the I don't know why I use this word. Under the auspices of the Board of County Commissioners will both free up precious levy dollars to be used for other senior programming and at the same time provide the opportunity to expand and enhance volunteer services across the county. Unfortunately, RSVP must relinquish their federal fund in order to move the program to the county. So effective April 2nd, 2021, RSVP will no longer require office space or fiscal services from the Willoughby-Eastlake School District. So we were the fiscal agent for that fund, so they requested that we notify that the federal fund would not be accepted for the third year. So it was at their request. This is just to make a formal action on that. Letter 3D, this is a new fiscal 21 budget for the Willoughby Drama Club. Letter 3E, these are the Ohio School Board Association dues. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and treasurer, dues are paid for membership in the Ohio School Board Association for calendar year 21 in the amount of $8,720, including an electronic subscription to OSBA briefcase. Last year, it was $8,318. 3F, the OSBA Legal Assistance Fund. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and treasurer, the board enter into a contract with OSBA for legal assistance fund consultant services for the period of January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. This cost will be $250. We did this as well last year. 3G, purchase orders and blanket certificates. We have a then and now certificate for Cornerstone Christian Academy. These are CARES Act fund reimbursements. It took a while for them to figure out how to pay back non-public school districts that were earmarked money, so they allowed them to spend it first, then for us to reimburse them with support. So that's why we are actually paying Cornerstone. And we have blanket certificates. A lot of these are for the second half of the school year. So we have re-education services. This is tuition for special education. Willow transportation for special education. Miscellaneous vendors. This is for college credit plus textbooks to various universities. STRS, so that's the state teacher retirement system. NEO, this is for our health care reimbursement. And MedMutual for our medical, dental, vision, and prescription coverage. Letter 3H, these are returns of advances. $507,000 from the Food Service Fund and $2,400 from the 5999421 fund. So whenever we advance funds from the general fund, it's to cover a deficit balance, and when they reach a point where they can pay back the general fund, that's when we would return those funds. Letter 3I, this is the transfer of funds. And this is a $50,000 transfer for the Termination Benefit Fund. This was done monthly in the previous year, and there happened to be a month where a board meeting was not conducted due to timing with COVID, and it was missed that the transfer still happened, but the board meeting didn't. So audit caught this, and we are doing this as a result of the audit. And those are the items for your consent under the treasurer's report.
Thank you. Item 4 is the superintendent's report. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item on the agenda is January is School Board Recognition Month. And in light of our agenda and all the things on the agenda, I won't go into a long speech about school board recognition, but I think it's really critical for the community to truly understand, and I know you all do sitting here serving. Sometimes it is a very thankless job, and sometimes we have to make some very difficult decisions. And I want you to know that I sincerely appreciate and empathize and understand with the difficulty that sometimes this responsibility brings. But what you do is really crucial to the 8,000 students that go to school here, and really truly impactful to the entire economic development and growth of our community. So what you do is very impactful. Please don't lose sight of that sometimes in the fray of what we do and answering emails and all of those things that we do. But I want you to know that the administration, on behalf of the administration, we are truly, and staff, we're truly grateful for what you do and what you persevere and the leadership that you provide. So thank you sincerely. Item B for your consideration is the superintendent questions and answers. Just an FYI for you to take a note of, we are holding a town hall meeting. This is for our teaching staff. That will be on Wednesday for our teaching staff. Getting them prepared for the return of our students on the 19th, and there's been just a lot of changes, and so it's an opportunity to update our staff and interface with them to the extent we can, and actually Zooms work really well for that, so I think that's part of the silver lining of this pandemic. Secondly, we will work through when we're going to have our special board meeting next week. Once we know that, we'll identify a town hall meeting for the community as well, because they have a lot of questions and concerns, and hopefully we can get that in before Tuesday. But I know we have some personal issues that board members are dealing with, and that'll drive when we can hold that town hall meeting. But the intent is to hopefully have that before school starts or shortly thereafter, again, to answer the many questions that the community has, specifically our parents have, as it relates to the return of school, what that might look like. And with that being said, there weren't any questions sent in. However, we've gotten a lot of email traffic that I think deserves to be addressed. And one of the questions is, when will vaccines arrive for staff members? And we have been told that the Lake County Health Department will be contacting us when they are available. We have surveyed our staff. We're preparing to be able to deliver those using our nursing staff. Our head of NCI is Lori Klonowski, who's a nurse, and so she is helping lead that. Thank you, Lori. And we'll be as prepared as we can and administer those vaccines to those teachers that choose them. I know that's a question out there. Are we going to make our staff take the vaccine? The answer to that is no, unless the school board tells me otherwise. That would not be my recommendation. Secondly, we've had a lot of recommendations from the CDC. Our recommendations from the CDC change quarantine from 14 days to 10 days. And people are hearing that the quarantine period has been changed from 14 to 10. And we've already experienced this with our athletic teams. This was done, and it's coming, a lot of information coming from the governor's office as it relates to quarantine, and causing a lot of confusion and information colliding with what the CDC says and recommends and what the governor says. The rationale from the governor's office to reduce our quarantines has been to reduce the burden of quarantine and increase compliance, make it easier for people to quarantine by reducing the time they cannot work. So that was part of the logic. However, the CDC states that any option to shorten quarantine risks less effective than the currently recommended 14-day quarantine. CDC also continues to endorse a 14-day quarantine. Stay home for 14 days after your last contact with the person who has COVID-19. And the CDC defines close contact as someone who has been within 6 feet of someone who has COVID-19 for a total of 15 minutes or more, whether they're masked or unmasked. That's what the CDC says. The governor's suggestions that we change the quarantine requirements for COVID if a student or staff member is exposed at school. So where did that come from? So basically what he's saying is if the exposure happens at school, essentially only that student or individual, well actually his study only addresses students. It didn't even address adults, which is pretty important considering one of our biggest concerns is our teaching staff and our support staff who happen to all be adults. But anyway, he conducted the study to make his changes. They were completed by the governor's office, the Ohio Department of Medicaid, and the Ohio Department of Health. They studied 9 school districts out of 614 school districts in the state of Ohio. At the beginning of the study, it was stated that this was a pilot evaluation. It is not a research study, nor was it designed to answer the mask and quarantine questions definitively. Those aren't my words. Those are directly out of the report itself. The introduction to the study states the critical question is whether the definition of close contact can be safely altered to incorporate mask usage. In other words, we can throw out quarantining, we can throw out social distancing if we wear a mask. That's what the question is. They studied 9 schools, as I indicated. They studied 728 children, 481 high schoolers, 58 middle schoolers, and 89 elementary students. Obviously, this isn't consistent in numbers, and part of why I have skepticism about this is the 481 high school students is obviously the largest representation of students, and they are the student body group most likely to comply and understand mask wearing and wearing them properly. The study did not involve adults, students only, and that seems to be the biggest error in my view. I am concerned about our students, but I'm equally concerned about our staff. The testing protocol differed with groups. Students exposed were tested 4 times per week, while students that were tested 2 times per week who were not exposed, which brings into question the authenticity of the study. At the end of the study, it was stated these data are preliminary. Final analysis may provide different values and possibly interpretation. Secondly, this pilot evaluation was not intended nor designed to provide the definitive answer regarding mask usage and quarantines in school. Again, that's a direct quote from the study itself. Third, but we must re-emphasize that these results are preliminary and the evaluation was a pilot meant to inform school policy considerations. The evaluation was not designed or of a scale to answer school attendance questions definitively. And 4, we emphasize that this report is preliminary and the report will not be completed until January 29th. So we're already making policy decisions about a report that is not definitive, it's not scientific, and it's not even complete. Following the Ohio schools COVID-19 evaluation, Governor DeWine has suggested that students and staff exposed to COVID-19 can still attend school. So I'm exposed, still come to school. Now the real irony of that is, while I can still come to school, I cannot play athletics. I'm supposed to quarantine at home, but I can still come to school. These people must also remain quarantined from all other aspects of life other than school, as I just mentioned. As a district, Lake County Health Department has suggested we can adapt quarantine guidelines or not. So getting nothing definitive at this point from the Lake County. So my question to the board is, we have a quarantining policy that currently states that if you are within 6 feet of a student or another student, who was COVID positive, regardless of where or how they became infected, then that teacher or those students would be quarantined if they're within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more. That is what our current guidelines say. I'm not recommending that that be changed, but with that being said, what does the school board recommend? Should Willoughby-Eastlake continue quarantining people in buildings that have been exposed to COVID-19? So I didn't put it on there for a vote because we already have made that policy choice, but I wanted to have a discussion about your thoughts, or if you want me to move in a different direction. I need to know that.
So the study was 700 students,
781 students,
and we just said that our district alone has 7,000 students.
almost 8,000 students.
And that it's not saying, even though the guideline from the state now includes adults, that didn't have anything to do with adults.
The study didn't even research adults. And it's in contradiction to the CDC.
And I think, I mean, you mentioned that it wasn't a scientifically valid study or conducted, I guess, in proper research methods perhaps. I think until such a study exists, I wouldn't suggest any changes.
Has this study been sent to the CDC? Has there?
CDC, to my knowledge, has not signed off or changed its policies as in response to this particular study. And this isn't the first time we've had conflicting guidance coming from higher than us, but we have always gone with the most conservative recommendation.
Right. So we've looked at the CDC, the state, the Ohio Department of Education, the Ohio Health Department, and the Lake County General Health District, and gone with whatever the most restrictive guideline is.
Correct. Correct.
Good.
So in that, they call it a preliminary study. They use like the words like, this is not a final definitive answer about mask wearing. I'm not quoting it, but just me totally. I think if we base our decision on that says it's not final, you can't base your decisions on this, and then if students or staff people would unfortunately get ill because of this switch, and I'm not recommending that, please understand that they'll say, oh, well, this said you can't count on this for warnings of this. I think our stronger is to follow the pediatric science, the doctors, the doctors of pediatric science and the CDC and the health department, because this is maybe looking at a handful of kids, but 791 kids is a fraction, and how do those children compare to our demographic, and there's no story. Was that a district that had awesome health care and really healthy student base, or was it a district that might have had some challenges with poverty and economy and things like that?
And I honestly don't know the answer to that question. And it's also, I think, going along the lines of what you're saying, Amy, is we don't know if they were in a hybrid model, if they were all in. I don't, I think there are so many variables. While I commend the governor's office engaging in research, I don't think that it's wise or prudent to.
I think at the very least, we need to wait until they finalize their study. I mean, it's not even gonna be done at the end of the month, so
Yeah.
I think if anything, I would feel, we stick with what we're doing right now. I think we've got it on paper, it's been working. I don't see why we would change it because of possible new information, but I do think it's something we should relook at once this is finalized or once any more information comes out, because whatever is the best information is what I want to use, but as of right now, this is just a starting point to me. It's like,
Right.
it's more, we think maybe this is the case. Let's wait and see kind of how that finalizes out.
I agree. So I think at this point, then, I'm going to continue to move on the policy that we have already adopted. This last question I have for you, that's come up a lot from our staff and the community. What is the plan if the county goes purple? And what does the board believe should happen? And just so you know, purple, again, taking right from the coloring system, purple means severe exposure and spread, only leave home for supplies and services. I think there are a lot of holes in the coloring system. I think we've come to realize that. But at the same time, that would mean numbers were growing for, and I think Dr. Beal can speak to this more intelligently than I can, as he understands the system and how it moves much better. But for us to move back into purple, I think if we were to continue to play sports and go to school, that I think it presents some issues. But our current policy is that we stop sports and stop school attendance. Is that something you want me to take a look at changing?
As we just said before, I mean, we developed our plan. I mean, the administration took a great deal of time developing what we were going to do in case this did happen. And I think there's no real reason, unless we see data otherwise that tells us we're wrong, I don't see why we would change our plan from what we had implemented and what we're focusing on right now. Just the same way with the masks. There is no real reason to believe we were wrong the first time. Again, if reasonable adjustments need to be made, I'm open to that if this happens, but I think generally we need to follow the plan we put in place.
And I would agree that as little as a month ago, when we did turn purple for that 2 weeks, that the Lake County Health Department had said, no, you need to be remote, done, and that sports needed to be paused. So I would agree with Mr. Merhard that at least at this time, that if we were to go purple, we would need to go remote.
I haven't looked at the numbers recently. Is that a concern that we would be getting close to that?
Right now, because our numbers are consistently high but consistent, we have not had the kind of 5-day increase to trigger a lot of the indicators. One of the indicators that is just hanging just barely not being met is the one that talks about the ICU units in our region being 90% full, and that 20%, almost 20% of that is specifically COVID-19 patients. And personally, that's the scariest one to me. I know that we've had grandparents in the district that have had to go to the west side of Cleveland to find a hospital bed when they had COVID-19 and needed to be treated. And that's the scary part to me. But at this point in time, I do not see us this week or next week. You have to have the right number of indicators to be purple for 2 weeks before you actually become purple. So we would have at least a little bit of advanced knowledge that was the direction we were going.
Just to put it in perspective, these are people who are COVID positive. We've had 184 total cases, 79 staff cases, and 105 student cases. And just today, this was printed earlier in the day, and by the end of the day, we have 11 more reported today with another sports team in quarantine, additional sports team in quarantine. Yes.
Question for you. So those 11 that are coming from today, is there a breakdown of how many of those are kids or staff? Is it like half and half, or is it 60-40 or 30-70?
I can get that information for you. It's a combination, but I know some of them are students and some of them are staff. And we've had some people very, very sick recently. And obviously I don't want to divulge names, but we've had several staff members hospitalized over the last week. One of our teachers having to go clear to the west side just to find a hospital bed. that's where we stand today. So moving on to agenda items, Mr. President. The first item 5A, is the Willoughby-Eastlake.
There's
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
I am so sorry, Lou. Lou, I was gonna skip over you. Thank you, Amy. Lou is here from Food Service, and he has a report that is required, and it is riveting from what I understand. So, Lou,
Yes, thank you.
probably wondering, what's he doing? He just skipped right over me.
No, that's all right. All right. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Luis Menes, the Assistant Director of Dining Services. I'm speaking on behalf of Stephanie Kemba, who's not here today. Just a quick update on the food service, just a little bit on the light side. So what we've been doing for food service, we've been operating under a program called the Seamless Summer Option. I know it's a little bit misleading with the term summer, but it's a program that is offered through the Ohio Department of Education and the United States Department of Agriculture. It's been extended from this past summer all the way to the end of the school year 2021. Basically allows all students, regardless of financial status, regardless of meal status, to receive free meals. So that's something that's really awesome that we've been able to provide for the students. I know recently, we've been running this since July of 2020, and we've been giving virtual meals on Wednesdays recently. So any students or anyone under the age of 18 can come and grab those meals free of charge and come to north or south on Wednesdays. So far as of December 31st, 2020, we have served a total of 277,000 breakfast and 338,000 lunches. Right now, when we do the distribution, we do 7 days worth of meals, so that's 7 days, a whole week's worth of food that we give out to each student. Right now, all the meals that have been served have brought in around $1.8 million in revenue through reimbursements through that Seamless Summer program. It's been pretty exciting, pretty challenging this year, but in our opinion, I think we're doing very well. I think we're doing something pretty phenomenal. It's something that the community obviously has reached out to us and showed a great deal of need for, so I think we're doing pretty good.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Food services work very hard, as you heard, to distribute an enormous amount of meals to our community that we know are very needed, and sometimes the lines are very long. Lou, I thank you, and I thank all the many volunteers and food service workers that are helping prepare that. They're working very hard, so thank you. Item A for your consideration is the Willoughby-Eastlake Library Trustee recommendation. The library runs through us. We just serve as the body that takes their recommendations and passes them through. That requires a vote.
All right, so this is a recommendation that it be resolved by the superintendent and treasurer that Ashley L. Corey be appointed to the Library Board of Trustees for a 7-year term expiring on August 31st, 2026. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Jones.
I motion to approve item 5A, Willoughby-Eastlake Library Trustee recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Zerr.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Charnella?
Mr. Murr,
Yes.
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mrs. Zern,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Beal.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Item B for your consideration is the 21-22 district calendar, and let's hope and pray that it is a normal school year.
Definitely.
Item C.
Can I say amen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay.
Item C for your consideration is the 2021-2022 high school, middle school, and School of Innovation middle school course selection guide for recommendation or booklets for our students to choose from. Item D for your consideration is the personnel agenda. Everyone who appears on this agenda is available to the community the Friday before board meetings, and obviously still moving forward. They do not become full-time employees until we have received satisfactory records from the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, the Ohio Department of Education, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Item E for your consideration is our non-teaching, it's our WESEP group, are the non-teaching bargaining unit members' health insurance, retroactive to December 1st. And that requires a separate vote.
Let's get back. That was the personnel agenda?
The item E, the
sorry,
non-teaching
yep.
bargaining unit members' health
Okay.
insurance requires a separate vote.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 5E, non-teacher bargaining unit members' health insurance? Mr.
President,
Roskis?
I will make a motion to approve item 5E, non-teacher bargaining unit members' health insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones?
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Marrar?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Mr. Thompson?
And then item F is public comment, and I would like to move in the future board meetings Q&A and public comment to the beginning
Right.
of the meeting, which I think makes more sense. Pam was out, and so you find out how important people are when they're not there. And Michelle did a fantastic job of putting it together. Michelle's our new employee out of the treasurer's office. She did a great job doing both Nick's side of the house and mine, but that's just one thing we're going to change moving forward.
And you earlier said that there was no public comment.
There was no public comment, correct, but I will have it in the beginning moving
Good.
forward.
Item 6A is the meeting notification. Our next regular Board of Education meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 8th, 2021, 7 o'clock at the Administration Building here at 35353 Curtis Boulevard in Eastlake. Item 7A is the adoption of the consent calendar. Do I hear a motion to adopt the consent calendar for this month?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Zern.
I make the motion to adopt item 7A, adoption of the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Do I hear a second? Mr. Maher?
I'll second
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Marrar?
it. Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And then the last item on the agenda, item 8A, is to adjourn the organizational and regular board meeting of the Board of Education. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President?
Yes,
Make
Mr.
a
Maher.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Maher. Do I have a second?
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones?
I second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Marrar?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
You're adjourned at 7:40.